Hi, welcome back to another episode on the Healthy Wisdom series with Dr. Jen Chen. Okay, you guys, today we're going to explore the sixth guiding principle of good governance, and it is called the principle of measurement. And how can we use this principle to apply to what it is that we are going through in our lives? Well, let's explore a little bit. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you guys is, how have these principles been so far? Have you guys taken action and applied some of them to your lives and made some changes or made some improvements? Or how has it perhaps been in terms of taking action and doing something with it? I'm just curious, you guys. So send me a quick email, direct message me or something. Let me know how things have been for you guys, because we are almost at the halfway point of these guiding principles, and I'm getting very, very excited because we have like a whole set coming through that are going to be very, very, very cool for us to explore some more. All right. So the principle of measurement. The board ensures that the organization's management performance and incentive system aligns with the organization's purpose and direction. The board measures its own performance separate from management. Okay, so this definition actually is coming from a very technical side because we're talking about measurements, right? And in essence, we're talking about how do we keep, ourselves in a accountable sort of way in terms of a performance, or as it's mentioned in there, an incentivizing system. So, but still be in alignment with, the purpose and the direction by which, this organization is going. So one example you could take from this is, for example, in a family unit, how is everybody kind of in relation to each other? The mother role, the father role, so the parent role versus, the children's roles. Do we each have roles? Do we each have ways to be accountable to those roles? Do we each have incentives set up so that, you can motivate, the individual to do what they have under their responsibility umbrella? Correct? So how do we keep ourselves going, especially when times get a little challenging, busy, difficult, maybe they're going through some emotional or, social types of stressors, So I think one way to help us maintain that is to be able to see some progress being made, right? So one of the things that we're going to cover today is we're going to cover the concept of the 4 R's. All right. And then we're going to explore one technique that I feel, or one method that is very easy to implement, and it is fairly easy to actually hold each other in terms of, measuring our sort of performance in relation to what it is that we are each responsible for. So what are the 4 R's? All right. Well, the 4 R's are, number one, the right person, right? Number two, doing the right role. Number three, doing the right work. And number four, doing it the right way. So this 4R rule actually comes from the business side of things, but it is very, very applicable to almost any fundamental unit, that involves people, right? Because we almost, if you can have the right person doing the right role, doing the right work, right? Or the right thing, right? Doing it the right way or in the right order, then you are going to have a much more peaceful and smooth process, right? So what do we mean by the right person? Okay. So in a business sense, there are certain people that are better with numbers, And there are certain people who are better with people. And there are certain people who are better with dealing with the technical stuff. They don't really want to, be the sort of like the face, for example. So, for example, in a relationship, there could be one person that's a little more extroverted and one person that's more introverted, right? And perhaps the more extroverted person, maybe they thrive, being in the social aspect. So that would be the person that actually I would encourage you guys to, kind of step into the light when it comes to, say, maybe, dealing with the sort of scheduling of, for example, family outings or couple outings, and also like, the social events, calendar. That would be probably a very good fitting role. For the person who's more introverted and maybe they just happen to be really good with numbers, maybe they should take over the finances at home, right? Not a bad idea because, generally somebody who's a little bit more introverted, they might be actually a little bit more inclined to be more meticulous with, small details per se, so maybe they're more financially inclined, right? So that kind of guides us into, doing the right roles, right? So it's sort of like teamwork, right? If you have the right person doing the right thing, the right role, right? And then the work kind of is the sort of breaking down of what is in that role per se, right? So if they are the person that takes care of the finances per se, then they can help with the budget. Of course, everybody still comes up with the budget together, but, they can actually, sort of take the lead on it and make sure that everybody has had their input in and their say about the budget that's proposed, right? For example, and of course doing it the right way. Do we have a systematic way of? So I'm just taking it from the budget perspective because it's a fairly black and white situation. Are they doing it the right way? So, for example, do we have a budget sheet, where we list out the cost of living, the expenses that are required, the different numbers of the different allocations for, social activities, funds, vacations, rent, mortgage, lease payments, if you run a business, some business numbers, if you have any professional affiliations, how much that would cost, taxes, savings, insurance plans, all these things, right? Is it listed out on a yearly plan, right? So these are just from that one example, like how we can um, put the right butts on the right seats, I guess would be a good way to kind of sort of frame this 4 R's principle. So after you've got all those 4 R's set, how do we actually measure? How do we measure, the progress of how things are going? So again, let's take it from the budget perspective. Do we have those budget sheets, right? That would be a good way to start. And secondly, how well is this person doing in this role, right? So maybe they do know the numbers, but, they're not very organized with the numbers. So then, maybe whoever is in this unit, whether it's a couple's unit or a family's unit or a grand family's unit, how are they actually being supported by everybody else? Are there, different types of measuring sort of target marks, that we have in place? So one thing I like to sort of use to kind of measure how we're doing is with numbers, you can actually see month to month, how well, for example, this budget is working for you guys, right? Because numbers are pretty black and white. What goes in, what comes out, that's pretty standard, right? Like there's not a big variation. And if there is, you'll see it in the numbers reflected. Absolutely. Right. And setting up target goals, right? For example, if say a family wants to go on vacation, for, a summer vacation, what are the savings plans for that? Have we budgeted for that? Are the incoming, numbers, matching with how much it's going to cost, right? After all expenses paid, right? Of everything else that needs to be taken care of on a month-to-month basis, right? Saving for retirement, that's another thing, right? So, there are people who maybe don't have children, and they probably do need to plan ahead and look into, retirement savings. How are you planning that out? Do you have a financial advisor? Do you have a specific tax savings plan? Wherever you're at, they may have different types of offerings. So, are there any insurance plans that, also offer some savings opportunities, while you're young, right? So those are things. And then by measuring, how well you're doing on a yearly basis from all those different plans and looking at the numbers, it's a fairly black and white measurement. If the numbers are growing in those accounts, then you're doing a good job, or at least a fair job, right? And then you can improve upon those, those numbers as well, right? So this is just taking it from that perspective so that you kind of know where to start. Now, one of the methods that I like to use in our family and our relationships is the scale of 1 to 10. I love this one. I'm pretty sure I shared it in episode 5 about the relationship scale, on a scale of 1 to 10. Ask your partner, how are we doing this month? Or how are we doing this quarter? We do it on every quarter basis. So we check in with each other about 3-4 times a year. And every quarter we go, well, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being perfect, 1 being we've got some lots of work to do. Where do you feel our relationship is at? And we each contribute a score. But we don't just say the score and leave it at that. We have to back it up and say, okay, what are some things that could be worked on to make it a 10, right? So once you back it up with the points, then we got to figure out together how we can bring it up to a 10. Because 10 is always going to be the ultimate goal. If you guys have, a 10 out of 10 relationship, then clearly you're on the same page, and clearly you're going to be happy with each other, and clearly we're going to be able to, weather any type of challenge together, right? So that, my friends, is one of the easiest scales, easiest check-ins that I can think of that you can implement today. All right, so what are the 2 things that we talked about today? The 4 R's, having the right buds in the right seats, right? And the scale of 1 to 10 to check in with your respective others, right? These are forms of measurement that we can use as progress reports for measuring how well we are doing. Whether it's in a relationship, as a family unit, in our careers, we can even set that up. How are we doing financially? These are all really, really universal techniques that we can apply for that. And I hope that, using these 2 methods, you'd be able to kind of get a kickstart on measuring yourselves and measuring your respective others, in the, I guess, with the goal in mind of, making, your life a better version of what it is today. All right, Healthy Wisdomers, it's been a pleasure once again to share this episode with you. And I'm so excited that you are still here and supporting us all the way. Please take a minute to subscribe, follow, and rate this episode so that we can share this wisdom with everyone that we know. And let's invite them to join us on this journey. This is the Healthy Wisdom series with Dr. Jen Chen. I'll catch you guys next week.